When you think about your life, where you are today, where you want to go, and the people who've influenced your journey the most, whose faces instantly come to mind? Whose voices ring in your ears? For many of us, those faces, those voices belong to people who are close to us, a friend, a relative, a mentor, people who have left a very special and indelible impression upon our minds and our hearts. And for me, the people who have had the biggest influence on my life are really the women in my life. My mother, my sister, my aunts, all very strong women in their own right, and all who have helped shape me into the person I am today. When I think about them, I'm reminded of many traits of theirs that I've always admired. When I think of courage, I think of my mother. Born in southern Spain, she later married my father at a time when interracial marriages were still not legal in many states. And then at the age of 22, she left her homeland in Spain and traveled across the vast ocean for America, where she continued to raise my sister and me with incredible strength and love. When I think of perseverance, I think of my sister. As a single parent, she worked several jobs, day in and day out, to help ensure her daughter could get the college education she needed to make her own future shine bright. And that hard work, perseverance, certainly paid off. As my niece is now a cath tech, working in the same field as her uncle and saving lives every day. And I couldn't be prouder. When I think of an entrepreneurial spirit, I think of several of my aunts who own and run their own businesses. For years, their ingenuity, their resourcefulness, their head for business, and their heart for people have served as an inspiring example to me and remind me of what a phenomenal payoff hard work can truly bring. When I think of music, I think of La Familia, my family. Growing up, my sister and I were surrounded by sounds and melodies that filled every family gathering of ours with life and laughter. Music to us wasn't just for simple pleasure, it was a way of life. And whether Spanish flamenco or blues music, it still is very much to this day. And when I think of resilience, I think of the many women who have been there for me throughout my career and have lit the path for me to live out my life's mission successfully. And I think of those whom I have had the pleasure of helping as well. For all my life, I've been absolutely blessed to be surrounded by such remarkable, inspiring women. And I can honestly say that I'm a better man because of each and every single one of them. And it's from their inspiration that I've committed my career and my life to supporting women in any way that I can. And that brings me to our very first takeaway of this message. Build a stage for women to inspire action and change, a place for their voices to always be heard. Now, saying this reminds me of one of my top executives at Atrium Health, who always creates a stage for inspiring action and change. She is my chief of staff and chief integration officer for the entire system. So not only does she have just one executive role, she actually has two. I certainly wouldn't be nearly as effective in my job if it weren't for her. She truly makes our organization better every single day. And what makes her even more amazing is that she actually started out as a nurse who has worked her way to become the dynamite leader she is today. But truth be told, that's just her day job. Her career has been decorated with many honors, including the Charlotte Business Journal's Women in Business Lifetime Achievement Award and Charlotte Business Woman of the Year, just to mention a few. But even beyond all this, she's also a phenomenally devoted mother to her three very accomplished children, all of whom she raised on her own. And if that's not the embodiment of strength, she's also a fierce cancer survivor who overcame the most trying of circumstances with grace, as she does with everything else in life. She is both tenacious and kind, what you would call a trailblazer in every sense of the word. And she's someone I turn to often and trust implicitly. But enough from me to tell you more about her experiences as a woman, as an executive of Atrium Health, and as a true trailblazer. Here is Carol loving.
You never, ever dream you're going to be ending up doing what I'm doing now, starting out as a nurse, but it still colors my work every single day. Being one of the few females in the boardroom is a little overwhelming still, even now. It's humbling. It's very serious. It's a privilege. I can think of all sorts of different words to describe it, but I feel this deep sense of responsibility. And I think it stems from being a mom, frankly, because it's something that I believe is that everything I learned at work, I could take home. And frankly, everything I learned at home, I could take to work, and it just all sort of worked. For me, the best thing always has been, I need to be the best role model I can be. And I need to teach all the lessons that I've learned the hard way. And there have been so many. Lots of times, women allow themselves to think that they're only good at, quote, the soft skills. And we know for a fact that women are better. Research shows it in terms of being change agents, in terms of being executors, and those are not soft skills. I think the brightest light in the future of the next generation of female leaders and clinicians at Atrium Health is the culture we have. And Jean Woods has brought that. Our board has endorsed it and completely supported it. And every day is fun to come to work because this is an organization that's on the move. It's always changing, and it's living its mission. All of us are, with resolve.
I'm always so inspired by women like Carol, who are leading with excellence and proving every single day just how powerful it can be to have women in leadership roles like hers. But making sure that happens takes more than just good intentions. And that brings me to our second takeaway, which is diversity cannot thrive without inclusion. It takes a strategic approach. At Atrium Health, we're driven by our mission to improve health, elevate hope, and advance healing for all. And by creating an environment where our differences are valued and respected, and inclusion is our way of life, we're best able to serve everyone in our communities. Now, over the past few years at Atrium Health, we've been recognized for the strong commitment to diversity and inclusion and have received several incredible honors, including one of the best employers for women, for diversity, and for being the best in state by Forbes. Number 1 on the list of best places to work for women, and diverse managers by Diversity MBA. And we've also been recognized as an Equity of Care honoree by the American Hospital Association. And though these are tremendous honors, none of this would be possible without all of us. And it comes with having the right infrastructure, the right foundation, and the right stage built for all of our teammates. At Atrium, part of that foundation means having strong system resource groups, or SRGs, in place. Our SRGs support efforts like teammate engagement, talent retention, and professional development, and they also actively represent Atrium within our internal communities. And in recent months, these resource groups have even been more important than ever during the response to COVID-19 and the social justice revolution that is transforming the nation. 2 of our SRGs were designated specifically for women. There's the Women's Executive Leadership System Resource Group, which connects women executives with emerging leaders across the system and serves as a hub for women leaders to connect, coach, and make decisions about career management, work-life balance, and other shared interests. And the mentorship is having a very positive impact. Several women who have become part of this SRG have even grown into higher executive leadership roles, like one of our ladies, Frances, who was recently promoted to Assistant Vice President after having served as a director for a number of years. Through the Women's Executive Leadership SRG, Frances was able to benefit from the mentorship experience and gain both wisdom and connections that have positively shaped her already promising career trajectory. And she's one of many great examples we can point to. In fact, so far this year, we've already promoted more than 1,150 women leaders who are part of the Women's Executive Leadership SRG, which is truly something that makes me very Atrium Health proud. We also just recently launched another SRG for women called A Square We Excel, which stands for African American Women Exemplifying Commitment to Equity and Leadership. The ladies in this group are focused, intellectual African American women and their allies who are looking for avenues through which they can develop, grow, and expand their network with other women throughout the system. They are dedicated to fostering connectivity and addressing the needs of African American women through access, education, community partnership, and leadership development. These are just some of the ways we're creating opportunities for women in our system to grow, to thrive. Another way is through the benefits we offer. For example, last year we specifically expanded our parental benefits for teammates to include special assistance with adoptions. And when we did, we gave so many working mothers and fathers in our Atrium family a chance to make their homes a little bit fuller. In fact, the idea for this benefit came from a time when I was rounding at one of our clinics, and an Atrium Health physician mentioned her adoption challenges. It was that conversation which led to this change, and later she wrote to say how much this new adoption benefit had changed her life and how thankful she was to Atrium for doing this. Another, Elizabeth Fries, wrote in to share her and her husband's touching story about how this benefit had also impacted them. And this is what she said. My husband and I struggled for years with unexplained fertility complications. So we eventually decided to adopt. At the time, we were stretched to pull together the $500 fee, but fortunately, I received an Atrium Keep Award for $500 right before we completed the paperwork. At our first adoption meeting, we learned that we needed another $27,000 to adopt. The ride home was quiet. Neither my husband nor I knew what to do or even what to say. But then inspiration kicked in, and we went all out. We designed and sold t-shirts, we hosted car washes and yard sales, sold donuts, and set up a fundraising website. And 1 year later, we raised $21,000, almost our goal. When I received Gene's email announcing that Atrium Health will provide $3,500 towards adoption costs in 2020, I couldn't contain my emotions. We can't wait to welcome this baby home, and Atrium Health is making that possible. I am #Atrium Health proud. Stories like these always connect me back to purpose. The reason why I, like so many of you, have spent my entire career in this field is because what we do is so much more than just improving health. It's about improving lives in every way possible. Thinking back on Elizabeth's story also reminds me of another one of our outstanding women leaders at Atrium. She currently serves as Senior Vice President and Chief Community and External Affairs Officer at Atrium Health, and was formerly our Chief Diversity Officer. In that role, she was responsible for leading our system's overall D&I strategy and developing our health equity agenda in concert with system physician leadership. I'll never forget the day we hired her, because at the time she was carrying her leadership responsibilities and her soon-to-be mothership responsibilities. For all the days since, she's become part of the team. I couldn't be more impressed by her leadership, her resilience, and her ability to balance life and work. And I'd love for all of you to hear from her now, Keneal Coltman.
I've spent my entire career in healthcare diversity. I worked at a health system in Texas and then in South Carolina for a health system. I was the chief diversity there for 10 years. And then I've been at Atrium Health for 3.5 years, and the last 3 of which were as the Chief Diversity Officer. So within that, I have responsibilities for diversity and inclusion, our system health equity strategy, community health, community engagement, corporate responsibility, and our career development center. So it's been a really wild ride to be able to grow my career right here at Atrium Health. When I was Chief Diversity Officer, one of the things that I'm so proud that we worked on at Atrium Health was we noticed that female and male physicians were having very different experiences. And year over year, women physicians' engagement was actually declining as compared to their male counterparts. And we intervened in 3 ways. Number 1, we developed a strategic plan to increase diversity in physician leadership. We heard from a lot of women and physicians of color that they wanted to see better representation in physician leadership. The second intervention was we heard a lot of feedback about how the way that we had structured part-time work for physicians just simply wasn't working and fitting into their lives. So we completely overhauled our part-time work structure for physicians across the enterprise. And the third intervention was really pretty simple. We learned that many of our physicians just simply didn't know about some of the wonderful benefits that we offered around balancing work and family. And then the very next year, we saw a huge lift in female physician engagement, and really that lifted our overall physician engagement into the top quartile as a result.
At Atrium Health, we know that having an effective diversity and inclusion infrastructure also means being intentional about how we recruit and create the next generation of our workforce. And with the World Economic Forum recently estimating that the global gender gap will not be closed until 2021, we are taking great strides now, more than ever, to help move the needle and set a national example for businesses both inside and outside of healthcare. That is why last year we signed the National Parity Pledge, designed for organizations to commit to eliminating gender disparities, specifically through recruitment, by interviewing and considering at least one qualified woman for every open role, VP and higher, including the C-suite and all governing boards. While we still have work to do, I'm very proud of our efforts to close the gender gap and create opportunities for women to step into leadership roles. To date, 47% of Atrium Health's vice presidents and above are female. This is 17% higher than corporate America, where only 30% of vice presidents and above are female. By being intentional with how we recruit, we are ultimately setting up ourselves to thrive in the future. And here to speak more about Atrium's Health recruitment strategies and how we get female leaders through the door and up the chain of command is our Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Strategy, with a focus on nursing recruitment. She's an incredible leader and mentor to many who she recruits. In fact, what makes her so unique is the personal connection she creates with all of our candidates, which goes such a long way when welcoming new teammates into our Atrium Health family. So I couldn't be more excited now to introduce Jackie Apollo.
I oversee talent acquisition, so I am the Vice President for Nursing Talent Acquisition and Strategy to allow teammates to focus on diversity and inclusion. It's very important that first they understand the organization's mission, vision, and values. So at Atrium, for example, our mission focuses a lot on the for all concept. And so with that in mind, our focus obviously is patients first. Teammates are key drivers in that process. And then obviously the community at large matters to us. So when it comes to diversity and inclusion, to make sure that it's top of their mind, I think it's very important that number one, they understand the benefits of what gender diversity would bring to the workplace. It can contribute positive outcomes to the bottom line, whether we're talking about performance, productivity, profitability, all of those things that are beneficial to the organizations. There is a need for organizations to really harness the potential of women in the workplace because they bring with them just unmatched passion and creativity to the workplace. And I think when we invest in programs that attract, retain, and engage women in the workplace, then it will be a worthwhile investment for the organization.
It's women like Jackie who go above and beyond in their roles, not because they have to, but because they care so deeply. Metaphorically speaking, Jackie wraps her arms around everyone she encounters, creating an environment where all feel welcome and included. This is a sign of a true leader, and actually leads me to my third and final takeaway today, which is We all must create and promote spaces where women can accelerate and grow. In an interview with ESPN's Ellen Duncan a few years ago, the late Kobe Bryant was asked about his daughters and if he'd ever wanted a son to carry out his basketball legacy. He responded without hesitation, "Girls are the best. I would have had 5 more girls if I could. I'm a girl dad." And thus, following his tragic death earlier this year, the term girl dad was coined in memory of Kobe and his beautiful daughter, Gianna. The hashtag girl dad has now been used thousands of times across social media by celebrities, sports figures, and others eager to express their appreciation and their love for their daughters. Now, I'm the proud father of 2 boys who mean more to me than anything. But I've always wondered what it would have been like for them to have had a sister. What it would have been like for me to be a girl dad. What would her hobbies be? Her likes, her dislikes? Who would be her role models? And most importantly, what would she dream of becoming? Maybe an astronaut, like Macy Jemison, a chemist, like Marie Curie, a primatologist, like Jane Goodall, or even a theoretical physicist like Catherine Fries. Today, nearly 70% of high school girls across the country dream of careers in science, technology, engineering, and math, otherwise known as STEM. Yet, just this past year, the National Science Foundation reported that while women account for about half of the college-educated workforce, less than 30% of women are in STEM-related fields. And taking that a step further, of the 30% of women represented in STEM workforce, less than a third are computer, mathematical, or physical scientists, and a fifth are engineers. This unequal gender representation demonstrates that, despite an increase in effort over the years to break that glass ceiling and shift the cultural stereotypes of women, gender inequality and biases are still very present, particularly in STEM. So for all the girl dads out there, the educators of young women, the mentors of female employees, we must work together to create and promote spaces where women of all ages can accelerate and grow. And this is especially important in the sciences. As American novelist and physicist Eileen Pollock said, the most powerful determinant of whether or not a woman goes on in science might just be whether or not anyone encourages her to go on. In our organization, I have been constantly inspired by the long list of female clinicians and researchers who, despite not always having welcoming spaces to thrive earlier in their careers, have propelled forward and used their own roadblocks as a way to forge a new path for the next generation of young women. Take Dr. Mary Hall, for instance, who oversees what I like to call our science apparatus. As Atrium Health's Chief Academic Officer and Senior Vice President of Medical Education and Research, Dr. Hall has dedicated her life's work to laying a strong academic foundation for undergraduate, graduate, and continuing education students, especially those who are women and students of color. Dr. Hall constantly challenges our female students to use preconceived and ill-informed perceptions of what is possible for women as fire to fuel their engines and drive their determination towards success. And another inspiring trailblazer who comes to mind is Dr. Catherine Passaretti. Dr. Passaretti, an epidemiologist by trade, is our medical director of infection prevention. Now, you might actually recognize her name, as she has quickly become one of the nation's go-to experts during the COVID pandemic, and has frequently made appearances on news outlets such as MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. In fact, Dr. Passaretti was also recently named by InStyle magazine as one of 2020's most badass women in healthcare. Yet, what makes Dr. Passaretti so special is her courage and her resiliency, despite the challenges she has overcome as a woman in STEM and throughout her professional career. And because of these experiences, she too is a champion for young women who aspire to be just like her. Dr. Passaretti's career, and really who she is as a person, is truly incredible. But don't take my word for it. Here is Dr. Catherine Passaretti to share a little bit of her story.
Well, my whole career is really in the STEM field. So right from the very beginning, math and science were things that I was drawn to and enjoyed. I'm an infectious disease doctor. I do infection prevention in the hospital setting. So, both on the taking care of patient side and my work in administration is all based around concepts of biology, infectious diseases, epidemiology, statistics. So I kind of cross that spectrum. So it's very impactful to me. I was very lucky in a lot of facets of my life. I had very supportive family that never put gender stereotypes on me. So, they're always supportive of whatever I wanted to pursue. I do think that mentorship can be huge for young girls. The other thing I'll say is, get comfortable with maybe being the only woman in the room in some situations, and know that, just because you have a different approach, you are not the same as everyone else in that room. That may be a strength, and you need to recognize kind of the power of being different and the power of speaking up and feel comfortable doing that, and finding your voice when, you feel like you may be out of place.
Recently, I came across a study conducted a few years ago at Yale University. Researchers asked over 120 scientists to review a job application of identically qualified male and female students, and found that the faculty members, both men and women, consistently scored the male candidates higher on a number of criteria and were more likely to hire him. If they did hire the female candidate, however, they set her salary on average nearly $4,000 lower than the male candidates. Let that sink in. Even within the science community, both men and women are guilty of gender discrimination and inequality. This is just one of many examples that demonstrate why promoting gender diversity and gender equality must not be a passive, neutral act. In fact, here at Atrium Health, we are staying vigilant as leaders to mitigate unequal pay distributions and unfair biases between our male and our female teammates by conducting ongoing equal pay practice assessments. But it can't stop there. We must all be advocates, men and women alike, in helping our sisters, our aunts, our daughters, and our nieces advance and grow their careers. And if not for ourselves, then we must be advocates for the women of the future generations who deserve a fair and fighting chance. Women like Gabrielle Odom, for example, who just launched her career at Atrium Health as an administrative fellow. Gabrielle comes to us from Xavier University of Louisiana, where she earned her Master of Public Health with a concentration in health equity. Now, she exudes energy and intelligence, and Gabrielle's voice represents our future. And while she has her whole life ahead of her still, she already is wise beyond her years, recognizing the importance and the necessity of gender diversity in the workplace. If not for ourselves, then let's change the status quo for women like Gabrielle.
I know most fellows typically have a background in health administration. My background is actually in public health, particularly health equity, but I do have healthcare background. It's just that, I guess, added education is a little bit different. So I'm hoping to bring a different scope and a different view, but still learn and get back into that role of healthcare on the administrative side. 20 to 30 years seems like a light year away. But honestly, I really feel like more women will be present at the executive level, the C-suite level, the CEO level. I know the for all piece, some people may say that's very one size fits all, but it's really not, because there's different layers. You have educational background, you have gender, you have color, you even have geographical location. And I feel like Atrium really encompasses that and allows me to bring all the different parts of myself to the table. So I can definitely be my full self, which is not something that I've always felt like I could do elsewhere.
So as I wrap up this third and final takeaway, I'm reminded of one of my own personal examples of how advocacy and sponsorship, specifically, can truly go a long way for women in the workplace. For more than a decade now, I've had the pleasure of mentoring, sponsoring, and watching the incredible growth of another amazing woman, who I worked with in DC and when I served as president of Christus Health in Irving, Texas. And now, she serves as our vice president and facility executive at Atrium Health Cabarrus. She is yet another example of a woman who is strong, intelligent, hardworking, and full of heart. And I have complete faith that her career trajectory will continue to reach the sky. I couldn't be more proud, no more eager to spotlight this remarkable woman. Here is Asha Rodriguez.
There's not a lot of rooms that I walk into where I'm not the only woman, but then to be the only woman of color adds another dynamic to it. And having Gina, an Afro-Latino man who understands my experience as an Afro-Latina, an Indian woman, is incredible because there are things that we don't have to talk about, but it's clearly understood between the two of us. He often talks about standing on the shoulders of others who've come before him. It's something he says all the time. But to know that he's actively placing us on his shoulders as he makes the climb, it's been incredible to watch him make such strides in his own career. But to know that I get a bird's eye view of what that's like, and knowing that he's paving the way for me is incredible. I can't begin to express the impact that it's had on the trajectory of my own career.
I hope that hearing the stories and the testimonials of some amazing women like Asha, Gabrielle, Dr. Passaretti, Jackie, Keneal, and Carol leave you as inspired as a leader as it does me every day, and serves as a motivator to keep finding new ways to ensure that everywhere, equal platforms are always being built for women to make their voices heard, and to help them shine, grow, and reach their full potential. So if you take nothing else from this conversation today, I hope you'll remember at least 3 things about how to make your organization a place for all. 1, build a stage for women to inspire action and change, a place for their voices to always be heard. 2, diversity cannot thrive without inclusion. It takes a strategic approach. And 3, we all must create and promote spaces where women can accelerate and grow. Advocacy is about focusing on what should be, not what is. This means having a dream, a vision about a better tomorrow, bringing your whole selves to work every single day, and striving constantly, moment by moment, to make that vision a reality. For centuries, women around the world have been doing just that. And they are the shoulders we proudly stand on today, the legacies that are now alive and thriving. In healthcare, these are women like Jane Wilkes, who led the first civilian hospital that served as a precursor to our organization in 1876. Teresa Elder, who was the first African-American public health nurse in this county, which we are headquartered, to others leading across the nation, like Melinda Estes, Nancy Agee, Terry Fontenot, all of whom have served as chair of the American Hospital Association, and Fawn Lopez, publisher and vice president of Modern Healthcare, and so many others. They are role models from all walks of life who continue to do things history only ever dreamed about. And this year is especially an opportunity to recommit ourselves to advocating, empowering, and embracing women like these. And for those who are history buffs, this time is especially meaningful as we celebrate the centennial anniversary of the women's suffrage movement and the passing of the 19th Amendment, which guarantees and protects women's constitutional right to vote. Think about it. A century ago this year, the U.S. was recovering from a flu pandemic while women across the country were marching through the streets advocating for their rights and freedoms. And here we are today, 100 years later, in the midst of yet another viral pandemic. And all along the way, women have been there for the world, from beginning to end, seeing us through time and time again, and being the strong and courageous leaders we turn to right now. So in honor of all the trailblazers, the badasses, the strong and empowering women out there, I'd like to lift the curtain a little and share with you now the other part of me that grounds me. At the beginning of this talk, I mentioned my love for music, so much so that in fact, I'm actually in the middle of wrapping up an album of my originals right now, which will be released later this year, recorded in this very studio, that includes a song about wanting to have women rule the world because men just haven't done the best job. And so while we're still finalizing and mixing the tunes, I'd like to leave you with a little sample of the track, which ties back to my core message, dedicated to my mom, my sister, my aunts, and all the amazing badass women out there. Here it is, Honorable Thugs.
Take over the world, women, before it's too late. Take over the world, women, before it's too late. Take over the world, women, before it's too late. Take over the world, women, before it's too late.